Brian Ortega has. Like Diego Lopes is a lot more diverse with his submission games. Like he has so much more tricks, and they're very similar. I can't say that though, because I think the only thing that's missing with Brian Ortega is he doesn't go for knee bars or leg locks and things like that, where this guy will.
My name is Triple C. I am the greatest combat athlete of all time.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to this episode of Tell the Tape. I'm your host, Henry Cejudo, aka Triple C. And on today's episode of Tell the Tape, I'm going to be breaking down Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopes, the Phenom. The guy's coming in. The guy's going to take on the number 3 contender, I believe. But this episode wouldn't be possible without our sponsors. That's right, Jimmy Bars, the gluten-free bar that is out in stores nationwide. So you guys make sure to go to your local Walmart and get your damn Jimmy on. But here we have it. Brian Ortega. Brian Ortega, 16-3. I want to say he's lost to Holloway. He's lost to Volkanovski. And he lost to Yair via dislocation. Versus Diego Lopes. 25-6. The only loss that he does have is anyways, the Russian. It was a great fight. He fought on my fight card there. 8 submissions to 12 submissions. I mean, look at this. But the level of competition too. This guy's recent. He just fought in the UFC, and he's been doing a hell of a good job. 2 decisions to Ortega. Like, it's pretty impressive there, man. Like, he's all those submissions. 5'8" to 5'11", height advantage for a guy like Diego Lopes. 69-inch reach to 72 for Diego, and obviously 33 to 29 years young for a guy like Diego Lopes. But without further ado, let's talk about T-City, LA. Am I doing it right? Okay. Hey, let's talk about his strengths. His timing on his takedowns are very, very good. And I mean that as an Olympic champ. I mean, other than me getting taken down by Murat, the dude has great takedowns, dude, great setups. I mean, his timing when people either press him in, he'll move his head, straight into his takedowns, or like he did against Yair Rodriguez, where he just said, hey, you know what? This striking game, I ain't playing this game with you. I'm going to grab you, I'm going to clinch you, and I'm going to take you down. And that's exactly what he did. He's got great kicks. I think his hands are good. Like, Brian's got hands, man. He really does. But sometimes his kicks, too, are underrated, dude. I think, if you watch that fight against Volkanovski, he was going low, he was going high, he was going to the midsection. He's gotten a lot better from just sticking from his hands to be able to use his kicks to hurt people. And if you go back and watch that Volkanovski, you'll know. And then now we talk about durability. I mean, anybody that's been able to, he did take a beating against Max Holloway. But man, talk about a guy that was there the whole damn fight. I mean, the ref probably should have stopped it. Or even against Volkanovski. I mean, talk about, he got beat up. He was very, very beat up. But his durability. And the only reason why is because he's a fearless dude. He's a very fearless guy. He'll go for broke. This dude's a risk taker. Whether it's submissions or looking for that heavy punch. But I think he's more fearless when it comes to submissions. He'll jump on that neck as he did against Volkanovski. He'll go for broke. He could be hurt or whatnot, but he will take his chances at winning. But let's talk about his weaknesses. Him at times, he'll lunge into his attacks. Even though he did take a guy like Yair Rodriguez down, if you watch, it was really kind of lunging forward to really get some, to like looking for things. And I think that's one thing where he's going to have to be careful. He's going to have to be careful, like lunging and doing a lot of these things that can get him in trouble to maybe eventually get him knocked out. Yeah, and against Holloway, and even Holloway grabbed his hand and showed him like where to hit. Like, he literally grabbed his hand and said, hey, hit me right here. His hands are super, super low at times. That's another thing that he's going to have to be careful on, because a guy like Diego Lopes, the dude's younger. There's one thing that the dude does have, training with the Grassos, He's got heavy hands, and he could get reckless. I mean, even though there's a durability side to him, like he'll just start doing things. He'll just throw to throw as the fight progresses. It gets later on. But let's talk about the young buck. Let's talk about I call him Justin Bieber. But look at this mullet, dude. You know, I mean, you gotta be confident. You gotta be confident to rock a mullet, and that he does. And that I will say, man, this guy right here, he is different, and he's a good dude, man. You know. But anyways, let's talk about his strengths. Heavy-handed, man. He's a big 45-pounder too. He's got power in them hands. Like it's not like a Francis Ngannou, but once it hits, you'll feel it and you'll start fighting different. His fast combos, you're able to boom, 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 boom. You know, everybody it seems like every Grasso team is like right, left, right, and they'll do that very, very well. But he will occasionally add freaking uppercuts into his punches, which is great. His submission, his high level BJJ, but it's also his chain submission game. You know, if you watch that fight that he did lose, this debut in the fight against, Evolov, that he fought against, on how he was able to transition so well from different positions, always looking for those knee bars and going for triangles, arm bars. I mean, this dude's always chaining all the submission threats that he does have. And obviously good timing on takedowns too. And I think that's one thing that I will say about, I mean, I'd probably give the leverage on timing to a guy like Brian Ortega, but this is going to be the true test for a guy like Diego Lopes against a high caliber fighter that's experienced like Brian Ortega. Let's talk about Lopes' weaknesses. Sometimes he will blitz, and sometimes he, like when he talk, I think it's Sabatino. Like sometimes he'll punch and he'll kind of keep his punches like kind of closer to his chest. His hands will come a little low. And at times too, against Dan Ige, he was punching wide, man. That was his last fight. Like it almost seems like he was just like, I don't know if it was like the last minute replacement, but it was a bit too much, and that's something that he's gonna have to check going into this fight, because Brian Ortega is that five in the top five. In the top five, it changes, and then at times he will get overly aggressive, and against a guy like Brian, you start just trying to punch somebody to get rid of somebody. Like he will go in for takedowns, and he's a submission threat as much as he is. So he's gonna have to be careful. He's gonna have to be careful here. But yeah, the tail to tape, the stats, strikes landed per minute for a guy like Brian Ortega is 4.09. In other words, he's a lot more aggressive than a guy like Diego Lopes, just a little bit. Strikes absorb per minute, because he throws more. That means he gets hit more. So for that reason, Diego Lopes has it there too. Takedown accuracy. Wow. Brian Ortega. Takedown defense. You see how it's kind of, you guys see how it's kind of even somewhat, like 58-49. We got to go with Brian Ortega again, right? And then submission average. Other than the head and arm stuff that a guy like Brian Ortega has, like Diego Lopes is a lot more diverse with his submission game. Like he has so much more tricks, and they're very similar. I can't say that though, because I think the only thing that's missing with Brian Ortega is he doesn't go for knee bars or leg locks and things like that, where this guy will. And who has the power in his hands? This guy has better power. Who has the better timing, in my opinion? Right here. Who has more experience against higher level competition? It could be a plus and it could be a minus. This guy right here. I mean, who am I going for? I'm going for this guy. I am going for Diego Lopes. But you can't count this dude out either, man. I'm going for him. But who's more likely going to be the favorite in this fight? Looks like Cupid now, right? I wasn't trying to do that. But who's going to be more likely favored to win this fight? It is going to be Brian Ortega. You know, going for him, but he's favored. You know, could a guy like Diego Lopes put him out? Because I do believe, like, when it comes to the grappling, I'm sorry, not even the grappling, the wrestling portion of it, this guy, you know, and Brian Ortega all the way. When it comes to the hands and the power, when it comes to the hands, they're equal. When it comes to the power, this guy. Submission threats, I think he brings more threats because of the leg locks, but he submitted higher level competitors because he's been in the UFC longer. So that's my breakdown, guys. I'm your host, Henry Cejudo, aka Triple C, and you guys know that I will always deliver. And this episode is brought to you by the one and only Jimmy Bar, the gluten-free bar that is out in stores nationwide. Guys, I've been able to lose so much weight from Uncle Jimmy, so you guys make sure to go to your local Walmart and select the stores or jimmybar.com and get your Jimmy on. I'm out!